Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Arseholics podcast on Monday night, bank holiday weekend in the UK. I hope you've all had a great weekend. Arsenal winning again. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe the pod. We love having you here. We've been really delighted by looking at some of the stats of the pod recently, particularly having listeners from places around the world that we thought we'd ever reach, right? And places like Sierra Leone. That was, that's amazing to hear, and it really brings us great enjoyment doing this. So please, if you can share, get the pod out there so more people in places like Sierra Leone can hear us. And I've got Mize here with me. Mize and I were very lucky enough to be at the West Ham game at the London Stadium. Been on a good little run of being able to go to away games towards the back end of this season. Mize, welcome. Are you still a bit hungover from the big day we had?
Yeah, we did have a big day, didn't we? It was a early start in terms of on the booze. But no, I felt fine this morning. I think because we kind of eased off once the game kicked off, I guess we eased off a bit and just had a couple afterwards, didn't we? And it was quite chilled out afterwards. So yeah, no, I felt fine, but I was still, like you say, it's been a nice little run the last few games. What a difference a couple of weeks and three matches make, eh?
Yeah, of course, mate. I mean, again, we said it in the last pod. Who would have thought it after those 3 defeats in a row recently? But let's not dwell on that too much. What? Mize, you know what? We should probably let you sort of take the lead on this, given you're a man from Essex, from East Side. West Ham's obviously not somewhere that's too far away from where you live. In relative terms, right, compared to me, who lives in Southwest London. Yeah. West Ham have got this, shiny new stadium, which I suppose isn't so new anymore, but it's been a few seasons. It's the first time I've been. It's not the first time you've been. I thought it was a thoroughly enjoyable experience, actually, to be honest. It's a stadium that wasn't initially, so for those of you that don't, many of you may know, but it wasn't a stadium that was initially built for West Ham. It's the Olympic Stadium. It was built for the Olympics, and as a result, it's got a fairly high end feel to it. It's basically it's kind of like a smallish Wembley, I guess. In that kind of feel, I suppose. But it's also right next to a place called Stratford. So Stratford is a place in East London which really kind of expanded during the Olympics. So it wasn't necessarily the most happening place, but then sort of at the end of 2006-07, when it became clear that the Olympics were going to happen at some point, or even I think the bid hadn't even been won yet, but in the hope that it would be won, that area, the amount of investment that went into Stratford was just immense. And it's a pretty cool and happening place. Mize, I mean, tell us a little bit. You're, as I said, the East London boy. Tell us a bit about Stratford West Ham, and you've got a lot of family who are West Ham fans as well, don't you?
Yeah. Like you say, even the area I live, or just Essex in general. I mean, a lot of people in Essex tend to support West Ham. So when I get on the train to go to an Arsenal game, if West Ham are playing home that day, the trains are packed with West Ham fans. My train into my route to Arsenal goes through West Ham Station, which isn't necessarily the station that connects directly to the stadium, but then I have to go through Stratford to get to Highbury and Islington. So so and like you say, my wife's family, all of my in-laws, they're all West Ham, and a lot of people I know are West Ham. So I kind of have I have a lot of conversations with people about West Ham, and I've been to Upton Park many times. My brother-in-law is a West Ham fan. And I used to go with him quite a bit, actually, just because he used to always get spare tickets going back kind of 15 years or so. Been to some really random games at Upton Park, and been to some good ones as well. Been to a couple of Arsenal games at Upton Park, and sat in with the home fans. And I was there when, I don't know if you remember the one where it was a 2-2 draw, and we were wearing one of the blue night kits, and Henry scored an absolute belter. It's quite a famous goal now, just because it was such a good goal, but it was one where the ball's kind of bouncing, and he just hits it on like the volley or half volley.
Yeah, I think I remember that. It was like a really motion, it's like an in-motion type volley. It was all like poetry.
And he kind of grabs the shirt when he celebrates. And I was there for that game. And anyway, wow. So I could talk about my experiences of West Ham in general quite a bit. But yeah, like it's quite interesting what you say about the stadium, because the match day experience for us was good, right? Like we obviously booked a table somewhere and we were on the beers for a good couple of hours before, or not on the beers.
And we completely lucked out, didn't we? To cut a long story short, we basically booked a bottomless brunch.
Yeah.
They sort of screwed up on the food order and we didn't get our food. And in the end, again, to cut a very long story short, I think we each had at least 10 drinks. So it was about, I think, we were on the Cuba Libras, right? So we had about, I think probably about 8 each. We had a few Jaeger bombs.
Yeah.
And all in all, and actually I think we had another couple of, at least one drink before but anyway, the point is, because they messed up, all in all, we got all these drinks, everything that I've described, for £10 each, because they screwed up the order. And so in London, right? In London, you can pay £10 for a cocktail. That's like fairly normal. Go out Central London, pay £10 for a cocktail. We had about 12 drinks for a tenner. It was amazing, wasn't it? We were pretty steaming, weren't we?
Yeah, we were. What I was going to say was like, it's so with this new stadium, like you said, I've been a couple of times. This is the second time I've been. I mean, mate, like I do kind of feel sorry for West Ham fans, because obviously they never wanted to leave Upton Park. To a certain degree, a lot of Arsenal fans didn't ever want to leave Highbury. But I guess the difference between our stadium move and their stadium move is, we moved down the road. Like a lot of fans' route to the Emirates, whether they're walking, getting the train, whatever, it still kind of goes through the same roads as it would if you're going to Highbury back in the day. Whereas this is like, they've just, obviously they've moved like location completely. And my experience of going to Upton Park back in the day was, whether I was going, whenever I was going as an Arsenal fan, I've been a few times as an Arsenal fan, like I said, you'd basically be shitting yourself. Like it was a very, very hostile kind of place where, I mean, I don't know if you ever went to Upton Park, but
no. So I'm intrigued. I'm surprised we didn't talk about this on the day, but
yeah,
we were too drunk. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, probably. So the stadium where Upton Park used to be is kind of similar to how Highbury was in terms of, kind of, but not really. But it's a stadium that is, surrounded by, it's kind of off a high street, Green Street. And surrounded by residential. It's a residential area, properties and shops and everything. So it's very, very tight in terms of what's surrounding it. And my memory of it is, like I say, you kind of get off the train at I think it was Upton Park. Was it Upton Park Station? I can't remember. And you'd go past the West Ham pubs as you're walking down Green Street, and you'd kind of see what's going on inside. And I've been inside a couple, like I say, going with my brother-in-law, kind of pretending to be a West Ham fan, as it were, in terms of just like going, like hanging out with other West Ham fans. And and it's pretty, I don't know what the word is. Yeah, hostile. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've seen like the film Green Street. It does feel a bit like that, where you do feel quite intimidated. I was quite young when I've been before, and I've seen quite a lot there when I've been. Like I've seen quite a few fights, seen quite a few like we saw a few scuffles after the game, and we're going to get onto that. But I've seen some proper fights and some proper kind of scary incidents. And I feel like they've just basically lost. Not saying that all of that is a good thing, but from what they had at Upton Park to have moved to a stadium that isn't basically nowhere near. It is in terms of it's like a few miles away, but it's not like walking distance. Obviously, moving to Stratford. It's this now. It's where football's going, right? It's kind of like this experience, like the match day experience. We saw it after the game. We were trying to get a table to sit down and get some food and get some drinks somewhere. And we went to like 4 or 5 places, and everywhere was just packed because West Ham had just played, and all the home fans are trying to do the same as what we were doing. And it's very, very different to what Upton Park used to be. Green Street is very well known for its kind of Asian, South Indian, Indian, Asian communities there. Lots of Indian shops, Indian restaurants or Asian restaurants. And, they've kind of lost all of that now. And I guess that's just natural in terms of what happens. But I kind of feel for West Ham fans because I don't know about your take on what you thought the atmosphere was like for your first time going. And we could, obviously, I'm really keen to hear about this, but I've been, like I said, I've been twice now. The first time I sat in the upper tier with the Arsenal fans, so to the new stadium, that was a game that we won. So to be honest, the home fans weren't great. I think we won like 5-1. It was when Sanchez scored a hat trick or scored a few goals from.
Oh yeah, I remember that hat trick.
Yeah. And obviously this time around we won again. And both times I've been really disappointed with the crowd, the home crowd, and it's very, very different again to what Upton Park used to be. Like Upton Park was like vociferous is maybe the best word of describing it. I remember like, the absolute hate that the home fans would be giving to giving to the away team, their players, but also sometimes their own players. Like West Ham have traditionally been an up and down team and kind of mid-table previously. And anyway, I digress. But and I just feel like the atmosphere wise, it's dropped quite a bit, and I didn't really feel like like after the game we were leaving the ground. You can't end up kind of mixing with the home fans because there's not really proper segregation. And we were still like, all the Arsenal fans were still singing all of our songs very, very loud. And like there were a couple of scuffles, and I know we're going to get into that, or just the experience after the game. But I didn't really feel like worried that someone was going to come up to me and like smash me in the face, basically, which is how I used to feel going to Upton Park, covering up my colours and like keeping silent and my head down and just trying to get out of there as quickly as possible. So very, very different experience, very, very different atmosphere. I don't know what your take was.
Well, it's so, mate. So the way it's so interesting hearing you talk about it, because me never having been to Upton Park, right? West Ham fans do have a reputation in the UK. Right. They've got ever since I was a kid, like, getting into football, West Ham fans had a reputation of being real tough, rough crowd. And I think I mentioned it on Twitter, actually, in the only 2 times I've ever personally witnessed racism from football fans has been West Ham fans. When I've been kind of in London on the tube and I've seen West Ham fans, I've seen 2 instances of racism. It's only been from West Ham fans. Obviously, that's my personal experience. I know racism happens, lots of different fans, it's not exclusive to West Ham is what I'm saying. Course, anyway, point is, the way that you describe the hostility, going to Upton Park is exactly how I imagined going to West Ham would be. So I'm, relatively anxious coming into this game. The way that we were tanked up, though, that anxiety sort of went. But the biggest example, I guess, the biggest indication I can give to back up everything that you're saying about the fact that it wasn't like that was that when we were going into the stadium, we were funneled with the home fans. The home fans and the away fans were together in the same queue, right? That is not a normal thing, right? No, Crystal Palace a few weeks ago, very specific away section. You go in, away fans go in a very specific area. Chelsea, we were funneled. There's like a whole 30 security guards who are just funneling you. The away fans walk through there, very, very segregated. This London derby, I know West Ham and Arsenal aren't the hugest rivals, but it's a London derby. We're going in together. And there was no hostility. I never felt unsafe for a second. So clearly things have changed, mate. And yes, when I was in that stadium, I was pretty disappointed with the atmosphere. I mean, it's fine. You don't want it to be a hostile atmosphere because you want Arsenal to do well. But it was fairly bland, I thought.
Yeah, and I think it's, again, like, it's modern stadiums, right? Like, we sometimes have this problem with the Emirates. Like, Emirates has a reputation for being a quiet stadium, and I don't think that's necessarily fair. It can be, but I think most Premier League grounds can be for certain games. But I think the problem with the Olympic Stadium is, number one, it obviously wasn't designed for football. It never was. As you said, it was designed for athletics. And I don't know if you noticed this. You probably would have, because it was kind of obvious. But the gap, like, obviously, the one issue is, and you pointed it out, is pitch level. The space between the touchline and where, like, the dugout is, for example, is like an actual walk. Like, it's probably like a 10-second walk or something. It's not, right pitch side. So there's that distance between the fans in the first row or the first few rows to the pitch on the long side of the pitch, if that makes sense. And then behind the goals, I don't know if this is the same the whole way around the stadium. I think it's just behind the goals. There's a huge, like, platform, I guess is the right term. So as you get to the back of the lower tier, so you go up the rows to the back of the lower tier, there's like a massive distance which you can't see on TV before you then get to the upper tier. So obviously at Arsenal, for example, you've got lower tier, and then it goes straight up to club level and whatever, diamond level, whatever it is, and then the upper tier, like, it's, so the fans are kind of on top of you to a certain extent. Here, the upper tier is like, it's like another stadium. It's like back in Westfield. It's mental. So that does not help with the atmosphere. I couldn't hear the upper tier Arsenal fans, and I couldn't hear West Ham fans from down the other end. So at least at the Emirates, you can, but you can hear the fans behind you. You can hear the away fans down the clock end when they're singing. And this was really poor. And I think it's pretty bad when you're in the stadium. I think it's a bit better when you hear it on TV, if that makes sense, because I think the mics tend to pick up a bit more of the atmosphere. And obviously, look, if West Ham are winning, I can imagine the place is bouncing, and we've seen it with their Europa League game. So I'm not trying to, I'm not saying this to criticize them or their fans or anything, but I think just from a stadium perspective, it's kind of unfortunate because I feel like Upton Park was just so much more of an experience, and I guess again, like that's where football's going, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, we'll get onto the game in a second. I could just probably say, recommend if anyone wants a nice day out, going to the London Stadium is a nice day out. It's got fantastic. What I found really interesting in the away section anyway. Usually, if you're lucky, you get one stand that serves you like a pie and a hot dog or something like that, right? Like even at Chelsea, I think you get a couple of choices of beers, and then there's a few things to eat. Brilliant at West Ham. You've got a popcorn stand. You've got you've got all kinds of. You've got pizza. You've got all kinds of different. It reminded me of going to the New York Yankees. It was that kind of variety. Anyway, to football. Actually, maybe the reason we've been going on so much about maybe the reason why we've delayed getting onto the game is because the game was very forgettable. It was actually a pretty boring game. Where Arsenal went in with a pretty encouraging lineup because. Everyone's been waiting for Tomiyasu to come back. He started. We talked before the game about whether he'd start or not. We weren't really sure, but he did. He started. And the surprise was Ben White seemingly picking up an injury before the game and Rob Holding starting. And probably the only other thing to note was Martinelli getting back in the side and ESR being on the bench. Firstly, awesome to have Tommy back, wasn't it? It was great news.
Man. So I think we were debating this, right? I think you said you didn't think he'd start.
No, I didn't.
And I thought he would. And like you say, look, very, very happy. Big difference in terms of quality between him and Cedric, obviously. He's a massive player to have for the run in, and I know he came off a bit early. And hopefully that's just like precaution or whatever, or lack of match fitness. But obviously, again, like pretty happy with the lineup. Nketiah, leading the line again, which completely deserves the chances he's getting at the moment, or the starts that he's getting at the moment. El Neni again starts, makes complete sense. So he's playing players on form, which is nice to see, or the players that are in form, he's starting, which is nice to see. I was a little bit concerned, when we've talked about it before, right? Like, we've lost Tierney, we've lost Partey. If we lose another senior player, how's that going to kind of affect us? And, when you see Ben White unexpectedly isn't starting the game and you're breaking up that defensive partnership, Gabriel and White, obviously there's a concern, but and I know we're going to come on to talking about Rob Holding, but I mean, we could. It'd
be good to deep dive on Rob Holding as well as Eddie in a bit. Why was it wise that you didn't? Well, so what I was going to say is, why was it that you didn't necessarily think that we played well? But maybe I'm putting words in your mouth. I didn't really think that we played well, and I didn't think West Ham played that well either. I mean, we ended up scoring the first goal, but up until that point, why do you think we're a little bit disjointed, a little bit lacking in fluency? Well, why do you think that was,
mate? It's really weird in terms of this team is. I don't know how to put it. This team is just like, obviously the results have been really unpredictable. And I feel like that kind of ties into the performances just being quite unpredictable. I'm honestly not sure. Like, it was very sloppy, wasn't it? It was really sloppy at times. I feel like there were like even players like Xhaka. I was going to say senior players like Xhaka were misplacing really easy passes. Tavares seemed to struggle quite a lot. So I'm not sure if it was down to kind of individuals being is it nerves because we're getting to that kind of crunch end of the season? Is it because Spurs have just won and the team obviously know that and the pressure's on us now to deliver a result? Is it they saw the West Ham lineup and
I was going to ask you, what do you think?
We were surprised about the West Ham lineup and they were expecting a much, much weaker team. Like we were expecting a much, much weaker team. So I was really surprised to see like Rice and Bowen and whoever else starting. So I honestly don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. Have you got any thoughts as to why? Or?
No, I think there's a mixture of everything that you said. I mean, I genuinely think it was a mixture of all those things. I think that we would have thought that they were just going to play their second string, a bit like Leicester played their second string against Tottenham. I think we just thought, they're going to play their second string.
Yeah.
They didn't really. They arrested Antonio, arrested a couple of players. Souček didn't start, did he? But no, otherwise they played a really strong team. So that would have been a little bit off-putting. And also it's just that Tottenham won, and I think there is that extra little bit of pressure. Arteta, after the game, he sort of said that, it really wasn't a performance that he's that happy about, but it was about winning ugly, and we did. Well, let's talk a bit about not necessarily goals individually. They're both set pieces. So let's just talk about set piece again. It's crazy, isn't it? So I've read two slightly conflicting numbers. So just talking about defensively for a second, this is another game where we have not conceded defensively, and depending which number you believe, it's something between the region of 155 and 180 corners that have gone before we have not conceded from. Right.
Season,
so I don't know if it's this season or that number,
okay.
because that's quite a big number. I think that might even carry on to last season. But basically, it's been around 150 to 180 corners that have been taken since the last goal against us. Which, well, I think so. Statistically, I think we are by far the best side. Sorry, here's the difference. It wasn't corners; it was set pieces. So statistically, we are by far the strongest side at defending set pieces. Right, that's what the stats say. Which is awesome. We also seem to score a high proportion of goals. So we scored 15 this season. Liverpool have scored 16 and City have scored 16 as well. But obviously we've scored a smaller amount of total goals. So I think 15 out of 54 have come from set pieces. So the proportion's pretty high. And both goals today, both goals against West Ham, first was directly, from a corner. The other one, it was this second phase of play from a corner, with both our goals. Nicholas Jova, right, is his name. I'm pretty sure it's Nicholas's first name. Signed from Man City. We've spoken about this a little bit briefly, but we've got to give him another shout out, isn't it? Because this is remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable to have a defensive stat like that, but also be really good offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. Some good stats there, man. I'm impressed.
Twitter.
Helps. Completely echo what you said. It's nice to see, like this. I guess we're not really used to this kind of thing as Arsenal fans, right? Like, you don't tend to see that kind of in terms of training ground work's not the right word, but these kinds of they're probably running basically loads of drills and repeating various situations in terms of defensively, offensively, from set pieces and corners. And obviously, as the stats show, as the goals show yesterday, that's clearly paying off. And like you say, full credit to the set piece coach. And I think it's also, like I've mentioned this before, I think we've talked about this before, I think it's also partly down to, or maybe a big part of it is down to the fact that we have very good players able to, in terms of offensively, we've got very good players that are able to deliver. Like, if you look at Saka's cross yesterday, for example, for the first one, it's just a very, very good cross. And I feel like, when ESR's in the team and he was taking corners, they're not just floating them in. They're not just kind of hitting it in and hoping for the best. I feel like they're either trying to target someone or they're putting it in a very, very dangerous area at speed. They're like whipping the ball in at speed. And that's just down to having really good kind of technical forward players. You've got Ødegaard who can deliver. You've got Martinelli, Saka, Smith Rowe. So I think that helps massively. And I think, we've now got, when you look at defensively, and especially when you think the holding side, if you look at who we've got kind of defending, the ball aerially, you've got Rob Holding, who is basically probably the perfect kind of player you'd want in that situation, in terms of getting his head on the ball and getting it clear. You've got Granit Xhaka, who loves to win a header. You've got Gabriel, who loves to dominate in the air. You've got Tomiyasu back, who again
6'2",
similar. You've got Ramsdale, who's a pretty kind of aggressive keeper. He likes to come for stuff and tries to claim and tries to punch and tries to clear. So, and normally you'd probably have like a Thomas Partey in there as well, who's also a big guy. So, I think that it helps, like, the personnel that we've got massively. I don't know, it's interesting. I don't know. Do you think that they, like, on the training ground, they like talk about this in terms of like the stats you've just said? Like, do you think
they're
they?
so proud? I think
Yeah,
I
I
genuinely
think so
think
as
it's a
well.
thing.
Yeah.
I genuinely think it's a thing now. You know, where something, it sounds silly, but you know where something becomes a thing and you kind of go, we are genuinely good at this.
Yeah.
Then you become so proud about it and it becomes a big kind of thing. Like where, you know, I think that it goes back to something that I think Aaron Ramsdale said a while ago in an interview. It feels like they just love trying to keep clean sheets, right? They love defending, right? They love that. And I think the attention to detail is so significant because if we just flip to the offensive side as well, right? They were analysing Rob Holding's goal. I don't know if you saw this analysis on Sky, but it was really, really interesting because they sort of went into a very, very kind of large degree of detail. But they sort of looked and they said, well, West Ham do sort of zonal marking, and they've got two pretty big players that are effectively standing in the kind of the 5-yard area. And Eddie and another one of our players are both they've clearly been told, stop those two players, right? Don't let them come out, right? And Eddie has got a much taller guy than he can deal with. But even the technique that Eddie is using to stop him means that Eddie's size, it's kind of irrelevant. He's still able to stop him. Right. And then when the ball's put in, it's put into a zone where that guy has to get, and he's not able to get there. And Holding is, you know, he's timed his jump and he's just kind of guided it into the corner. It was a great header. It was a really, really good header. Very good header. But the detail there, right, is like so specific. And then and that's, I love that. I love seeing shit like that. Like
I haven't seen that analysis, but I need to check that out. But that's really interesting. And obviously, that's you know, completely, it sounds like it's completely planned. It's you know, they've obviously done the analysis on how West Ham set up for defensively from corners or from set pieces. So like you say, I love that as well. And I think the other thing about the goal, the first goal, just really quickly, what I really like, you've probably seen it on the replays, what I really like is Holding, it's Lanzini marking Holding, right? And obviously that's a massive mismatch. And you see them kind of both like grapple a little bit. And as the corner comes in, Lanzini's sort of trying to obviously stop Holding. And then Holding almost just like, it's like for a split second, he's like, what the fuck, like, what are you doing? And he just like literally shoves him. He just shoves him out the way and just says, get off me. And then he just goes and wins the header. He's just, just completely bosses the situation, which I absolutely love.
It's interesting because I don't know whether the reason why that was such a mismatch is that, well, I think that there's one genuine reason, which is that it seemed like because of the changes at West Ham, you know, some of the players that didn't play for West Ham, it was a smaller kind of overall populace that they kind of had in their team. But I wonder if the reason why they were comfortable to put Lanzini against Holding is because they relied on the zonal system where those two other players would come out and probably dominate if it was in that area. So anyway, whatever the case, it's great. And the other thing about set pieces and the way that we've been scoring set piece goals, I think there's a few that we've scored like this, is that second phase. And I think it really goes unnoticed that second phase is something that quite clearly the top teams really, really practice. The knowledge that, you know, when the ball comes out, there are very specific places that players still need to be. And what I like about our second goal was actually that second phase, like it felt like Gabriel was so switched on to know that, hang on, the ball can be delivered in this area. And like, and his movement was really good. Like, I mean, you know, moving on from the goals themselves, want to talk about a couple of the individual performances. Rob Holding, right? So, you know, emergency Rob Holding protocol has been the thing this season. We've talked about it. He's so reliable. You bring him on when you're winning the game, shut it out. You bring him on. He did, you know, played against Chelsea, started against Chelsea. Defensively, we were a bit funny that day. Whatever, we won, so it's all good. Again, he started and he started against West Ham and he won man of the match. What did you think?
Yeah, man. I mean, very, very solid again. He seems to be the ideal kind, like in a game like we had yesterday where West Ham, are obviously so good generally from set pieces, aerially. You know, they've got big physical players. I guess a couple of them probably didn't start in terms of Antonio and Souček. Souček didn't start, did he? No, he didn't.
No, I don't think he started. I think he came on like later on.
So he's I guess the playing against West Ham is probably the ideal kind of match for him to come into. But yeah, like I think I saw some stats and I'm not going to pretend like I remember them, but I'm pretty sure he was like, obviously he was man of the match, but you know, in terms of clearances, you know, blocks, I think he was either first or up there for the match. And yeah, like I mean, I can't think of any mistakes he made. He had a fantastic game, and we all know that Rob Holding is not or shouldn't be the answer in terms of a starting centre back for Arsenal for 38 Premier League games. But at the same time, he's quite similar to Elneny in a way as a squad player, where you bring him in, you know what you're going to get. He's kind of experienced enough now and he's probably at an age now where you can just kind of rely on him and depend on him. And yeah, like, I think we're quite lucky that we've got someone like him in the squad, to be completely honest. And I would like to think that, this is a separate conversation in terms of squad management and transfer window and next season. But, I'd be very, very keen to keep someone like him in the squad again, an English player. It seems like he, gets along with everyone, all of that kind of stuff. Like, he helps with the morale and everything. And yeah, like it's fantastic that we've got him as an option. Really, I thought he had an outstanding game.
We talked in the past about how if we were going to be able to do anything towards the back end of the season anyway, it was going to be a squad effort, right? It was going to be a case where players who were on the fringe, when they were brought in, would have to step up. We've really seen that, haven't we? We've really seen Holding step up, Elneny step up, now Eddie step up. I mean, arguably Eddie is now a starter, but it's been so important. I mean, Cedric, beforehand, even Cedric coming in and stepping up, it's been a great feature. Rob Holding, this is his first Premier League goal, apparently. This is his first Premier League goal for Arsenal. Yeah. Amazing. And Aaron Ramsdale made that funny joke, is it? Only 6 years and a new hairline. That's all he needed. Yeah, I know. So it's great. Look, it's great to see that kind of banter in the team. It's great to see that kind of bond as well, right? Like, and I was just really happy for Rob. And I think you're right. It was an ideal sort of game for him. If we're playing against a team that were a lot more mobile, nifty, and had a few more tricks up their sleeve, and had some trickier maybe centre forwards, maybe it would have been a different game. But it wasn't, and he did well, and we won. And look, someone else who really wanted a deep dive on, Eddie. So Eddie comes into the team against Southampton. That was his kind of start. We create loads of chances, but he doesn't score. We lose. Chelsea, he starts, scores a couple of goals. Man United, I didn't think he played as well as he played against Chelsea, but he still showed us the benefits of having this mobile striker, and he was still he was still tricky. I mean, against West Ham, it was a pretty. If you ask most people who was man of the match, they may have said Holding. They may have also said Eddie. I mean, I thought it was a very, very. It was a very good performance from Eddie. It was a bit different to some of his other performances. I thought he was really direct. I felt a lot of the time, I think he was picking up the ball from deep and not just doing what you mentioned it actually. You mentioned during the game, I remember you saying, look, he's playing sort of the lacquer role because he was coming so much deeper and sort of bringing others into play. But what he was doing, I felt, more than, what we've seen of lacquer in that role, is when he was getting that ball, he wasn't afraid to just go, head towards goal and just run and then shoot. And now I think why, when some of those times you're shooting from kind of angles or distances where you're probably not going to score. But what, on reflection, it's so useful, right? Because he's shooting, he's generally getting a good shot on. A couple of those times we won a corner. Yeah. And one of those corners we scored a goal. So if corners are our threat, you want to win corners, and he's being direct and he's doing it anyway. Eddie, overall, tell me what do you think about his performance?
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like he was quite unlucky to not get a goal. There were a couple of actually really, really good shots, and there weren't even really chances, but shots from distance that one that went just past the post, one that Fabianski tipped round the post. One or two that he tipped around the post. So I feel like, and even in the last game against United, similar, obviously the goal that the one he put in the net ended up becoming the penalty because they pulled it back, and one that he probably should have scored, which De Gea saved. So like, it's great that he's kind of getting into positions in the box, positions outside of the box where he's having the opportunity or creating the opportunity to take a shot. The thing I really love about Eddie is, I mean, let's be honest, I don't even remember pointing that out to you during the game because, I don't remember much. I don't remember everything from the game. But I mean, watching some of the highlights and watching the game back, and it's an obvious thing to say, but just having a striker that is willing to run in behind and obviously has the pace to kind of play the offside trap and play on the last defender. Like, perfect example is, the ball that El Neni plays through. So I think we win possession back from a corner or set piece. El Neni comes out with the ball, and you see the run that he makes. It was very, I was going to say Michael Owen, and I'm not comparing him to Michael Owen, but if you probably know what I mean, because when you think of Michael Owen, you think of the goal against Argentina for England, right? And it was that kind of run where I think he bends his run, times it perfectly, and the ball in is amazing. It's a very, very good ball from El Neni, and I think that one he's unlucky, but that is such an important kind of threat to have from your striker, from your number 9. And obviously he's offering that to us at the moment. I guess, the thing that it shows for this team in the next few seasons, or I guess the thing that it shows that we're lacking, unless Eddie kind of steps up massively in the next few games and kind of almost makes himself unsellable, or we have to tie him down to a new contract. The thing that it shows is, what we've been saying, right? What a top level number 9 striker gives us, if that's the way we're going to play. And if it's kind of like we want an Eddie type player, but just basically a much, much better version of him. And the other thing that I really, really love about him is, and he did it against Chelsea when Christensen, made that really bad back pass. He's just on it. Like, he's just alert. He's on it. He's always trying to press. He's trying to harry the centre backs or the defenders. And, he's always ready to pounce on a mistake. He did it again when I think Kufal makes a really bad back pass. He's just on it. He's quicker to the ball than Zuma. And in that scenario, I don't know if you remember it, but he cuts back inside and tries to hit it on his right. And I don't know if that's like a lack of confidence on his left, but I did feel like he had the beating of Zuma on the outside, and then he probably should have gone on the outside and hit a shot with his left, but maybe he's just more comfortable on his right. But again, like, that's like a really good trait to have. And it wasn't something that we were seeing when Eddie was coming on for like 10 minutes in previous matches this season. So, is that, I don't know. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, actually, if you reckon that's because he knows he's kind of playing for his future in terms of other clubs are going to be watching him and thinking, is it worth, taking him on a free with probably a fairly big-ish contract? Or he's trying to convince Arteta to, and Arsenal to give him more money. But it feels like, obviously, since he's been starting, his performances have gone up a notch. But is that because he's always had that in him and he's just not been trying as much when he's been coming off the bench? Or is there another reason for it, or we just haven't seen it?
Isn't it? Because when he was coming off the bench, and he wasn't putting in the performances that we necessarily thought he should. And actually, part of that, we were talking about effort. We felt that he necessarily wasn't actually putting in a huge amount of effort on the pitch. I
think I know. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. But I feel like I didn't think it was as bad as people made out. I think the problem is that we were bringing him on expecting him to kind of save the day, kind of like 10 years ago when we were bringing on, I don't know, like Bentner, or I don't know, I'm trying to think of names like Eduardo or whoever we might have. Yeah. And it was like these guys, and I guess I said it before. I think it can be quite hard for a striker to come on and have an impact when they're only getting 5, 10, 15 minutes here and there. But I remember, sorry, carry on.
There was an effort thing, was it? Because I actually remember once, again, you correctly called this out and you probably won't remember it, was once when Lacazette was starting and we took off Lacazette after, I don't know, about 75, 80 minutes and brought Eddie on. And I remember you messaged in the WhatsApp group and said, Eddie's come on for the 30-year-old and he's arguably run around less. He said, where's that? I don't know if you remember that, but that was spot on. I felt at that time, right? Yeah. Where there was a question about effort. Do you remember we were theorizing around that time as to why this could be? And there were all kinds of theories that, we were suggesting. Is it because he already has another move lined up and he knows where he's going and that's all done and dusted? Is it because he's really demotivated and he's just kind of got his head set on getting to the end of the season and getting out of here? We're theorizing in all kinds of ways. And now, we're theorizing in completely different ways or the same ways, but for different reasons. As in, we're now trying to understand what has caused such kind of upbeat, energized, focused performances. And maybe it is like what you suggest. Maybe it is actually just a case where we're starting him and all he said seemingly all he's been saying all along is, I want to start games. I need to start games. I need to get a run. And then, then I'll show you what I can do. And maybe he just kind of said, all right, well, actually, I am being started now. And now I'm being started. I really, really have to bloody show something. I don't know if it's as simple as that, but I think the interesting thing, the really interesting thing for me is is he clear on what he wants to do in the summer? Irrespective of this new wave of effort and why it's come or whatever, is it, has he made his mind up? I would love at this point I would love to think that he hasn't actually made his mind up, and it is on the table. And I hope we're being clear with him, because I still don't, again, I think there's a longer conversation. I still don't believe that Eddie's the answer. I don't think any of us are saying necessarily Eddie's the answer. We don't need to go sign another striker. But I think in the way that he's playing at the moment, he certainly is someone who can, add quality to our squad, to a squad which is enhanced by, with more firepower. He's still someone who can add a lot of value to that squad. And so I sort of hope that the decision hasn't really been made either way. And it does sound like we've had a contract on the table for him. And I guess we'll have to see how that plays out, right?
Yeah, pretty much, mate. I don't think his future's been decided yet. I don't think he knows exactly what's going to. I'm sure he's got offers on the table. It kind of sounds like, obviously, the main priority for him is starts. He wants to start games. He's not 18 right anymore. He's at an age where, I mean, to be fair, he's still quite young for a Premier League striker. He's not at his peak yet. So, but I don't know, maybe he's waiting to see what happens with us and who we sign. But again, I don't know. I'm not really sure exactly what the situation is. Obviously, no one really knows. But yeah, like I'm sure he's got offers on the table, but he must be looking at it and thinking, I could potentially be playing for Arsenal in the Champions League next season, potentially, as a second striker on probably decent money, with a view to, maybe winning some trophies in the next few years, whatever, kind of finishing in the top four. Not sure what's going to happen with us, obviously. Or I go to I don't know, like a Villa or a Crystal Palace or a West Ham. No disrespect to those sorts of teams, but I can imagine that's the level of team that's probably going to be going after him, and maybe starting for them every week. But probably, my career is probably, in terms of level, is obviously going to drop off quite a bit. So, yeah, it will be really interesting. I mean, yeah, that's a whole conversation, right, about our squad. Yeah,
agreed. Listen, like, before I wrap up on the actual football of the game itself, like, do want to talk about something that we've talked about again, like over the last few weeks, and it seems to be a feature, which is some of that nervousness that seems to be creeping in at the moment. Obviously, there's a lot to play for. There's a hell of a lot to play for. There's Champions League football to play for, and it's a great opportunity. And we've come through a few games which I don't think many people expected us to beat Chelsea and beat United, kind of together. And Chelsea as an individual game was probably the tougher game, of course, to predict that we would win. But I guess the point is, we've used the word hairy before. We're having a lot of hairy moments in games, and we've said throughout the season, actually, not just limited to the last few games, we've said that we seem quite vulnerable after we score. We seem to sort of take the foot off the gas somewhat. We seem to go in our shell, and at first, I think we questioned, is it Arteta? Does he tell them to kind of defend? Like, what is it? But seemingly kind of, when people have seemed to analyze Arteta's body language after we score, it seems like he's not the one telling them to, kind of retreat and kind of go into their shell. But anyway, I guess, very long-winded way of saying, it was sort of similar, wasn't it, against West Ham? We got nervous. We got sort of really nervous after we went 1-0 up and really sort of allowed them back into the game. And I think it was probably an avoidable goal in the end. Like, it looks like a fantastic finish from Bowen. It's a little bit unlucky because unlucky on our part because it deflects off Gabriel and kind of takes it away from Ramsdale. If it didn't deflect off Gabriel, Ramsdale may have saved it, but didn't. But let's just talk about the nerves element of it. Mate, is that just going to be a feature for the rest of the season? Is that just something that we have to accept?
Yeah, look, we keep saying how young this team is. Everyone knows how young this team is, how young the manager is, inexperienced. And I guess you're probably going to have to accept that there are going to be hairy moments. The goal, just quickly touching on it, it was a bit disappointing because I think West Ham had just almost scored before that from a corner where Ramsdale makes a save just under the bar. So obviously it was coming, right? We did seem to retreat a little bit. And it was, the goal itself, the time we conceded was absolutely awful. We were saying it, the three of us were saying it, just go in at halftime 1-0. And, it happened against Chelsea, almost happened against United, to be fair. We're, 2-1 up and we luckily, what's his face?
Bruno
Fernandes, missed that penalty. So obviously, look, that it could potentially be down to the kind of inexperienced nature of the team. It could just be down to the fact that we're not an elite team yet, and we don't know how to, I don't want to say see out a game, but get the second and then kind of almost give ourselves a bit of a cushion. I'm not really sure. And I had a point in my head which has now completely deserted me, but I was gonna make a point about the goal actually. So the West Ham equaliser, it was a bit disappointing because go on.
Well, I was going to I don't know if describing the goal was going to help you trigger the moment, but there's that ball that's kind of played over from Declan Rice, and it's sort of played out wide, slightly diagonal ball. It's a bit, so not much was made about it at the time, but there's certain angles and there's certain kind of points where you think, I don't know if that was offside. But it wasn't explored during the game. You see whether Arsenal even bothered, appealing in any way. So anyway, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was fine, maybe it was so marginal, whatever. And then the ball comes into the box.
Do you not think Tavares should? So this is what I was going to say. I think, and again, I'm not necessarily blaming him. I'm not singling him out, but I just feel like I have this frustration in general when I watch any type of football. Like, why, as a left back, as a right back, as a full back, are you not closing down the ball as fast as you possibly can? And even when Tavares does close the ball down, I think it's Kufal who gets it wide. He just turns I think Kufal, it doesn't even cross it. It's that kind of drilled pass to Bowen. And Tavares, he stands off in the first instance. Then when he closes him down, he then turns his back. So as he turns his head, like he doesn't even look to see where the pass is going. So it's really frustrating. He does that typical thing where they put their hands behind the back and he turns his head. And it's kind of like, you're not even, you're not trying your absolute hardest to just make sure the ball does not get into the box. And like you hear like old school, like I'm probably sure like if Gary Neville's going to talk about, one of the main things he tried to do, like Gary Neville's a kind of like an example right back for an elite team back in the 90s, whatever. It'll be like you stop the ball at source, like you just stop the cross coming in as much as you can. And I feel like, I don't know if he's worried about getting beaten by Kufal and whatever, but that was a bit disappointing. And I also feel like Bowen had quite a bit of time as well. Like I feel like Gabriel, if he steps out like just a yard, he's just got less space to do what he does, because it feels like he's got quite a bit of time to like get that shot away. Deflection or whatever, fine. But I just feel like defensively we could have been a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more switched on. It was a bit frustrating.
Tavares, it's an interesting kind of diagnosis to understand why it is that he kind of tends to switch off a lot. Now, like I don't know whether it's, so I heard this I'm stealing this stat from Arsenal Vision, actually. I'm pretty sure it was Arsenal Vision. It was one of the other pods. I'm stealing it because I think it was a really, really really big eye opener, which is that we know that Tavares is young, but I think one of the things that's underappreciated is how few minutes in professional football he's actually played.
All right.
Right. So basically the stat is Nuno Tavares has fewer professional minutes. So, not just at Arsenal, including Benfica. He has fewer professional minutes than Saka has minutes this season.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So do you know what I mean? Like that's
so
pretty
professional.
As a professional footballer, he's had fewer minutes than Saka this season. So I don't know if some of it is just got to do with that, with experience at this level, for knowing that you've got to do all these basic things right all the time. And I know like it sounds silly, and it sounds, when you say it out loud, it sounds so obvious. But I wonder, whether when you're playing and when you're on the pitch, there's an element where players know that, you're going to need to get your energy back sometimes. You're going to need to get your concentration back sometimes, and you need to kind of let not switch off, but rest, And I don't know whether it's just a case where with Tavares, he just needs to figure out like smarter ways of doing that, and just be more kind of focused and switched on, and just do some things habitually better. And maybe that's it. Maybe that habitually he hasn't got the right things in place yet. But I think the interesting thing, Bryce, for me, is that in the standards that Arteta is setting this squad and what he wants to achieve, how patient will he be with that? And you know, we've seen we're playing if we play in the Champions League next season, you know, he'll probably think that, well, you know, with Tierney's injury, kind of, you know, he'll probably have to rely on whoever is the backup left back to play a fair few games.
Yeah.
Is he going to want to bring someone else in who is more defensively solid?
Oh, I think he will. I think he has to. Like, I think especially, if we get Champions League, I think if Europa League, you might be able to cope. But basically, what we've learned over the last few seasons is Tierney, unfortunately and annoyingly, you can't rely on him for 50 games a season. So you basically have to sign a second first choice left back, I think. What that means for Tavares, I don't know. I really like him. And I think going forward, he's just got this, like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm just going to run with the ball, and I'm going to, you know, and he's got that attacking side of him is really exciting. But obviously defensively, maybe it is just an age and inexperience thing. And like the stats clearly show that he's very inexperienced in terms of kind of top level first team football. But yeah, I think for next season, you might need to, I mean, I don't know. I'm not thinking of any names. I'm going to suggest any names, but I think we must be looking at options, because we can't rely on Tierney at the moment, or definitely not for a full season.
It seems like in the press we're being linked with Bologna's fullback. I've forgotten his name, but he plays left and right back, and it seemed like
not Tomiyasu, is it?
No. I think it's like Tomiyasu Mark II, but someone who's predominantly a left back. So hey, look, we'll see. We'll obviously talk a lot more about squad building in the future. And so look, anyway, whatever the case, scrappy game. Arteta said it was ugly. It was clearly a game which I think he very sort of succinctly put it, where he effectively said, you need sustainable ways of winning games. This wasn't a sustainable, you know, we didn't play in a sustainable way. And that it was, you know, good for him to admit it, because that is the case. We won't keep winning games if we play like that. But we did. Whatever. 4 games left. It's all about the points. So look, before I get on to looking forward to next weekend, just wrapping up on the match day experience, right? Again, after the game, like you mentioned, that there was probably more awareness from the police and more efforts from the police to kind of be aware of kind of fans sort of coming together. But still, it was a case where there was no real strict segregation. We came out of the stadium, Arsenal with, you know, the fans, we were, you know, the atmosphere was brilliant. You know, we just won again. There were flares being let off. Like, the songs are going. Arteta's getting back us back in the Champions League. That song's going. We didn't hear the song that everyone has been talking on social media that they wanted us to start. That song, The Angel, by Louis, and I forget his surname.
Oh, I don't know,
but
mate.
Dunford.
Sure.
Dunford. I'm pretty sure it's Dunford.
Okay.
Yeah. Louis or Lewis. I apologize if I'm not. But anyway, that I heard at some point late in the second half, really late in the second half. Okay. I heard a couple of people try and sing it, but it didn't really go. I heard
it in the toilets before the game and at halftime, and a few people sang it, but it didn't really catch on. I guess a lot of people just don't know about it yet. Like on Twitter, hearing on Twitter is one thing, but I don't know what percentage of Arsenal fans are on Twitter. Probably a lot, but match game fans, not sure.
Yeah, and to sing a new song, exactly, and that's it's got more words, you know, than songs that you can sing that we drunk. Because obviously a song that did get sung, which has all of one word, yellows.
yeah. Chant. I was going to ask you.
Tell us. Sorry, go.
I was going to ask you a question about that song. Then, so do you what do you reckon? And just really quickly, are you a fan of it?
Let me. I'll split that up into I'll answer that in 2 ways. One, I've always forever been jealous of Liverpool for having You'll Never Walk Alone. So the notion of having a song that you can sing at the beginning of the games that is epic and cool and whatever. And Arsenal, you know, it felt like we tried to do that about 10 years ago when we were 5 to 10 years ago when we were trying to do The Wonder of You by Elvis. That was, you know, didn't really work. No one really gave a shit, and they got rid of the song. But so in that way, I'm all for the idea of something like that creeping in. I think, you know, not the jury's out. It seems like a nice song. Don't get me wrong. But I think that we need to hear it being sung a few times before you kind of go, actually, this is, you know, this is gonna bang. This is it. We can really feel the emotion. Everyone's getting into it. You know, really, really feel that. So I'd love for it to work. Put it that way. What about you?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Like the first time I heard it, I thought this is no disrespect to the actual song or the artist or anything, but I thought from an Arsenal kind of perspective as an anthem, I thought this is a little bit slow. It's not, it's not at You'll Never Walk Alone kind of levels. Then obviously the Twitter kind of it did the rounds on Twitter and obviously got a lot of attention, and people started pushing it a bit more. And then I listened to it a few more times and started to like it. The more and more I listened to it, then people were adapting the lyrics slightly, especially the last couple of lines, adding like Arsenal in there. So yeah, I'm pretty much the same with you. Look, I'd be really, really happy if it catches on, and yeah, hopefully it does, because we don't have a song like that, right? We don't have an equivalent of what Liverpool have. So yeah, it'll be good for Champions League next season, mate.
Well, fingers crossed. And look, I want to spend at least 5 to 10 minutes talking about next game, Champions League, all that kind of stuff. So very, very quickly, just to wrap it up, the atmosphere at the end of the game, the walk home, that showed shades of what you kind of were reminiscing about Upton Park, didn't it? There was a few scuffles here and there. There was the police horses and trying to tell people to move and get out of the way and all the rest of it. Did that make you feel part of the old West Ham experience?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was pretty minor, to be honest, but yeah, I mean, look, the thing I'll credit Arsenal fans is when we did it, because obviously, again, we could talk about this for a while, right? But the police direct you like literally very, very far away from the stadium. You have to go some long ass route to get back to where you want to go, which is basically everyone's going to Westfield because the food places are there, the pubs are there, the train stations there, the tube stations there. We're getting back into Westfield, and we kind of funnel into this, going in, basically back into Westfield. And at that point, for some reason, whatever reason, all the Arsenal fans that were mixed, it was pretty much 50-50, West Ham and Arsenal, probably more West Ham, obviously. Arsenal fans just like go full on with the Arteta song. And it was really, really nice to see. Then we walk into Westfield and there's like complete silence.
You don't want to be identified.
No, you don't want to be identified. So yeah, it was a good day. It was a good day.
Yeah, man. And let's look forward. Let's hope we're going to have a few more good days. It's a really interesting weekend for us coming up, right? It is a weekend where, look, every in the 4 games that are left, obviously every weekend, every match day is going to be huge. And this one is one that could really, really kind of, tell us a lot about what's going to happen, because we've got Leeds at home and Spurs against Liverpool.
Yeah.
Now, what's brilliant for us is that Liverpool have got a lot to still play for. They still want to win the league. They're still going to be pumped. And a pumped Liverpool is someone that is a team that, is there anyone harder to deal with in the world than Liverpool at Anfield pumped? I don't know, right? So that's what's going for us. The slightly kind of annoying thing for us is, we are, as we talked about, a little bit nervous. We're a bit nervy. We're playing a Leeds team who are really in a relegation battle, right? They're getting dragged down. Everton winning, there's all, Everton beating Chelsea means that, there's all these question marks as to who will actually go down. It's very unclear. So Leeds don't want to get dragged into that. So, it's a nervy potential Arsenal against Leeds, and then, Spurs against Liverpool. Now, before I ask you what you think about those games, it's quite interesting because the way that it could work out, right, is if we beat Leeds and Tottenham lose to Liverpool, that's a 5-point lead Arsenal have over Spurs with 3 games to go. Yeah. Which means that if Arsenal beat Spurs at White Hart Lane, it's done. It's toast. It's over. Arsenal are 4th, at least 4th Arsenal finish, right?
Yeah.
It means that if we draw, it's hard. It's hard for Spurs, but again, that's all contingent, on those 2 results that I just mentioned first. But we really do need to beat Leeds because, it's momentum. But we discussed, both these teams, Arsenal, Tottenham, have got the capability of dropping points. So I'll pause there. Our prospects against Leeds, very quickly, first of all, what do you think?
Yeah, this game does worry me a little bit. Leeds are actually in all right form. They've obviously kind of, since they swapped Bielsa for
Jesse Marsch.
Yeah. They seem to have had a bit of a turnaround in form. They seem to be a little bit more. I know they got sort of beat comprehensively by City, but that's Man City. If you kind of take that result on that match out of their last few games, they've actually been relatively solid, and I think that's one thing that he's instilled into that team. And my worry is they're going to come, I was looking at Leeds' fixture. I think they've got us, and then they have got us obviously, then Chelsea, I think it is, and then they've got 2 kind of quite winnable games. It might be Brentford and Palace. I could be wrong. Someone else. And I think like they'll probably come to us just like basically trying to get any sort of draw. Like if they could just take a 0-0 or 1-1. And that's my worry, is that we are basically going to have to, we're going to probably be coming up against a team, coming for a draw, setting up a low block. And it's a question of, can we break them down? And if we don't break them down and get an early-ish goal, it's like the tension, it's just that scenario where I'm not actually too worried about the crowd becoming quite tense about what's happening on the pitch, but more so, are the players going to be able to kind of deal with it essentially? So it's just going to be an interesting challenge. It's kind of frustrating that Leeds have so much to play for, and they are fully in, like they're fully in it. Like those three teams, Burnley, Everton, and Leeds. Like no idea who's going to make it.
Yeah,
out of the three of them. So it's
because even Watford can come out of this.
Oh, I don't know, mate. Do you reckon? I think I've got the table here somewhere, but they're like 12. They can't, but can they? They're like 12.
I think they can. I don't think they're that bad, man. I don't think
they're on 22 points, and Leeds are on 34. Yeah, I think.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, I completely misread that.
Did you think it was 32 points?
I thought it was 32.
Okay, no. So
forget
I think
me. I'm still drunk from Sunday. Yeah.
So those three teams, I think. Like I said, I think that's my concern. Look, on paper, we should be beating them, but when you get to this stage of the season, when you're playing a team with a few games to go that absolutely needs a result. Like I don't think they're going to they're obviously not going to come and play expansive football like Bielsa would have and try and win the game. So they're going to set up in a way that's just going to frustrate us. And just how do we deal with that? That's my kind of worry. And look, the good thing is that we've got goals in the team now, right? We've got goals in the team. We've got a striker that's willing to shoot and is in the box, taking shots, all that kind of stuff. And obviously in good form. And I feel like, if we'd have come into this game off the back of the 3 that we lost, I'd be really worried. I still think we'll win on Sunday, but I don't know what other fans are predicting yet or whatever, and other people are saying in terms of Arsenal people are saying, but I think it might be a bit tighter than people expect it to be, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. So if I ask you for just 2 predictions, like to wrap this up in a few minutes, what's your prediction for Arsenal Leeds? What's your prediction for Liverpool Tottenham?
Arsenal Leeds, I'll go 2-1. I think it'll be pretty tight. Liverpool Tottenham, oh my God, this game's stressing me out because I'm really worried. Like, I don't think so obviously Liverpool have got the game tomorrow against Villarreal, and I just hope they kind of, they score early and then they're pretty much through and they could just rest they can make some subs, rest people, whatever. And it's just a very comfortable night for them. And I think it will be. I don't think they'll have any trouble, but I'm just a bit worried that Spurs seem to turn up in certain games. Like obviously the City game's a great example, but I'm just worried they're just going to I don't know. I'm just worried they're going to put in like a really good performance, or Son and Kane are going to have a really good game and they might get something from that game. So I'm going to really pessimistically predict 1-1.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I mean, the last time they played, it was a draw, I think.
Oh,
it was. I think it was 2-2. But I think out of the 7 games before that, Liverpool won every one. So I think Liverpool tend to.
Hopefully, Liverpool just do what they do at home to everyone and just blitz them. But maybe it's just that nervousness coming in from the 4 games to go, and Look, I think all we can do is focus on ourselves and hope that things go to plan and Liverpool do beat them. But I don't know, I've just got this weird feeling.
I agree. My prediction, I think that I've got the same anxieties as you. But look, if I was to put money on it, I think that for us, I think we're going to win 2-0. I think it is going to be nervy, and I wouldn't be surprised if even it's kind of similarly kind of set piece related goals. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way. But I think we're going to win 2-0, and I think Liverpool will win 3-1.
That'll be amazing.
Yeah. So obviously, look, my prediction would see us going into the North London derby weekend in a pretty, decent position. And your prediction would see us go in if we're both if we win and they draw. So that's
4 points.
Go in 4 points. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would still be interesting.
Mate, any sort of buffer going into the North London derby would be huge, because then you're essentially saying, not that we should approach the game in this way, but we don't have to win.
Yeah, agree.
We just have to get a draw, basically make sure we don't lose, and then it's still in our hands, and 2 games to go. Like, we'd have to absolutely collapse to not make it from there.
We would, and we are capable. But we're capable. Yeah. But hey, you know what? It's going to be a hell of a ride in these last few games. So look, let's all buckle in. And look, I think we'll call it a day there. So next game is on Sunday. So we've got a few days before that. To Tottenham play on Saturday, don't they?
Yeah.
So we're going to know. So we'll know what's going to happen before Sunday. So that's going to be interesting. But everyone, look, thank you so much for joining us. Miles, thank you for joining the pod. And obviously we will both be at the Sunday game. So we will report back with that experience. And everyone have a fantastic remainder of your week. And thanks again for joining and listening to us, and like, share, subscribe, all the rest of it. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Raj. See you, mate.
Cheers.